All right, let's talk about one of the biggest changes coming to Dungeons and Dragons in 2024. And I mean, this is a fundamental shift in how you create a character. We're not just talking about what your character can do, we're talking about who they fundamentally are.
So let me ask you something. In a game with, what, hundreds of pages of rules, what's the one rule that everyone seems to forget about? Is it the grappling rules? Maybe how cover works, the exact blast radius of a fireball? Nope. It's something way, way more basic than that. It's the rule that defines who your character is, who they were before they picked up a sword or learned their first spell. And with the new 2024 rules, this thing that we've all kind of ignored, well, now it's front and center. It's a huge deal.
I'm talking about your character's background. Yeah, that's right. For years, backgrounds are basically just flavor text, right? A little bit of seasoning you sprinkled on top of your character sheet. Well, not anymore. Now they're the actual foundation. The whole thing's built on them. I mean, the shift is just night and day. In the old 5e rules, your background was decorative. It was like a little ribbon on a present. You got a couple of skills, maybe a neat but kind of forgettable feature, and then that was it. You pretty much never thought about it again. The 2024 rules completely flip that script. They turn your background into your mechanical identity. So, mechanical identity, what does that even mean? Right? Well, it means your background now gives you your starting feat. It dictates which skills you're good at. It even influences how you start the game. And here's the really big part. It changes how you solve problems and how the world reacts to you. Think of it like this. Your class tells you what you can do. Your background, it tells you why you do it the way you do.
Okay, so if these backgrounds are suddenly so important, why have we all been ignoring them for so long? It's a fair question. And the answer really boils down to this thing I like to call the loud versus quiet problem.
Just think about it for a second. Your class is loud. It's your fireball, your sneak attack, your divine smite. It's all the big, flashy, noisy stuff on your character sheet. Your background, though, it's quiet. It works in the background, no pun intended, during investigations, in social situations, in the little assumptions your character makes without even thinking. And because it's quieter, more about the story, we just assume it's less important. But here's the secret sauce, right? You don't actually experience D&D as a stat sheet. You experience it as one decision after another. And when you're making those split-second calls, like, should I trust this person, or wait, something feels off here, that's not your class talking. That's your background. It's way more influential in those moments. Okay, let's make this real. Picture this. A sailor, someone who spent their life on the open sea, walks into a fancy noble's ballroom. What do they see? They're not thinking about their combat moves. They're noticing how stiff everyone is, the fake smiles. They're looking around at all these soft hands and thinking, none of these people have ever done a real day's work in their life. That's their background shaping their entire perception. Okay, now, same exact room, same party. But this time, a noble walks in. They see a totally different world. They're not seeing fake smiles. They're seeing the subtle insults being thrown around like daggers. They can instantly size up the room, figure out who's in charge, who's faking it, and who's a threat. It's the same scene, but they're living in two completely different realities. And it's all because of their background. And this brings us to a huge problem in how a lot of D&D games are run, especially when it comes to investigation. The DM often presents just one single boring truth to everybody. I bet this sounds familiar. The DM describes a room, a few people say, I investigate, they all roll a die, and whoever rolls high gets the clue, right? The soldier finds the same clue as the charlatan, who finds the same clue as the wizard. It just becomes a dice rolling exercise, and all that amazing character identity just vanishes. So how do we fix this? Well, there's a really simple but powerful tool we can use. Let's call it the background lens framework. It's a way for DMs and players to make sure that background is always part of the equation. And it's super simple. It's just 3 questions you can ask yourself about your character in any situation. Number 1, what feels normal here? You gotta establish their baseline. Number 2, what feels wrong? This is where the interesting stuff, the clues, start to pop up. And number 3, what's their first assumption? This is what drives them to act, and it can lead to some really cool role-playing moments. Okay, let's put this into practice. Imagine the party finds a bloodstain on the floor near a window. The soldier and the group takes a look. To them, with all their combat experience, it's not just blood. They see the splatter and think, this was a controlled wound, not an accident. But then the sailor comes over to look at the exact same stain. And what's their first thought, having spent years on slippery decks? This looks like someone slipped. They see an accident, not a fight. And finally, The charlatan, the master of misdirection, peers at it. To them, it just looks a little too perfect, a little too obvious. Their gut screams, this whole thing feels staged. See? Same physical clue, but three totally different stories start to form, all because of their unique background lens. You know, a clever DM can actually design their mysteries around this. Think of it as a three-tier clue model. Tier 1 clues are universal. Anyone can find them. There's a body on the floor. Got it. Tier 2 clues are background sensitive, like our bloodstain, where what you see depends on who you are. And then there's Tier 3, the background exclusive clue. This is a piece of information that only a character with a very specific background would even notice as a clue at all. So why are we even talking about this? Why bother with all this? Well, because it's not just about making backgrounds feel tacked on and important. It's about creating a fundamentally better, more immersive game for you and everyone else at the table. And this gets at a really core idea. We often think good role-playing is about, putting on a silly voice or giving a big speech, but it's not. Real role-playing is just decision-making. It's making choices that feel true to your character. When you start feeding players information through their background lens, they don't even have to try to role-play. They just start doing it naturally because they're reacting to the unique world you've shown. Because at the end of the day, what do we really want when we play D&D? Yeah, loot is great, winning fights is fun, but what we really crave is to feel smart when we solve a puzzle, to feel important to the plot, to feel unique, like our character is the only one who could have done what we did. We want to feel necessary. And this way of thinking about backgrounds, it hits every single one of those notes. So really, it all boils down to this one simple idea. Your class, that's what makes you strong. It gives you the power. But your background, that's what makes you distinct. It's the thing that guarantees that you bring something to the table that nobody else can. And I'll leave you with this one last thought for the next character you make. Your class will give you power, for sure. But when you sit down with that character sheet, ask yourself a different question. What gives this person a purpose? And more than ever before, the answer to that question is found in where they came from.